Hi everyone, welcome to the 21 and Sensory podcast with me, Emily. This is episode 18, and today I'm very lucky to have another guest on my show. I have the very lovely Sophie joining me today. I initially met her over on Instagram, and we sort of kind of got chatting through that sort of avenue, and that's how I got to know her. But I'm sure we'll kind of dive into that a little bit later and talk about her Instagram as well. Sophie, do you want to say a quick hello and introduce sort of who you are and maybe just a little bit of background on your life?
Hi. I'm Sophie, as mentioned previously. I'm 28 years old. I initially from Austria, and I've been living in the Netherlands for the past 3.5 years. And I've been diagnosed with ASD in June last year, so 2019, and been on sick leave ever since because I'm in burnout. So no exciting work accomplishments to mention. But that's me. That's what I'm up to right now.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fair enough. And just like I appreciate you being honest and telling us that you kind of had to, burn out and that you're on sick leave and stuff like that. Also interesting that you were diagnosed in June last year because I was also diagnosed last year. So
Oh,
joining the
really?
club, yeah, November.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
yeah,
that's actually kind of close.
yeah. So we were both last year. So we're both. So I'm 25 and you're 28 at the moment. So we're both kind of late diagnosed, aren't we?
Yeah,
In
very much
terms of
so.
just
Yeah.
kind of getting round to it. I mean, when were you? Because I know you're dyslexic as well. When
Mm.
did you know about that before your autism assessment?
Oh yeah, way before. So
Way before. Okay.
the thing is, I am not actually formally diagnosed with dyslexia because
Okay.
no one kind of thought to do that somehow.
Right.
But I don't, to this day, I don't know why. I don't know, maybe it was my mom thinking she didn't want to put that on me or me sticking
Hmm.
out or something. But I it got noticed by or picked up by teachers when I was in elementary school. It was very clear just from the fact that, like, in a 30-word essay, I had 35 bad mistakes.
Okay.
So it was kind of pretty obvious. And I went through, there was in my elementary school, there was like specialized training. So I would see like a specialist once a week, and they would study with me and try to help me with stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, as I said, I have no idea why it wasn't formally diagnosed. It was just always very obvious and continued in high school. Like, my teachers just knew. There was just this like running joke with like, all my teachers, like, oh yeah, so best essay of the class, Sophie. Also, worst grade of the class, Sophie. So
Oh.
so it's just like, yeah, it just was a thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I knew from very early on. But it wasn't, since it was never diagnosed, it was never like a thing. So
Hmm.
it's, when we think about diagnosis, it's, that would not have been an indication for me that I might be autistic, because it was
Okay.
just never like, yeah, no one was ever like, oh, you have a learning disability. It was just like, haha, you're bad at spelling.
Okay. I get you. I definitely had that as well. Like at school, everyone was just like, yeah, Emily's a bit slow at processing things. And like, I was just happy with that. And I only got diagnosed as dyslexic when I went to university and they did like a kind of like widespread kind of like assessment thing for like picking up anyone who was dyslexic in their first year at uni. And that's how I found out, like age 19, I was dyslexic. So like it was never picked up before then. So I can totally get how, you just kind of slip through the net almost, don't you? Sort of.
Yeah, but that's fascinating that your university did that. Like,
Yeah.
I fucking wish they did that with us, because it was, because I was never formally diagnosed, and because there was also, there wasn't really anywhere you could go to.
Mm.
It I also never received accommodations. Like, I just, like, I often wonder, like, how could I have performed in for example, like, languages, or in even just like German class, where I would write
Mm.
essays and so on. I've always been a writer. Like, I wrote from like a very, very young age, but I made so many mistakes that I'd always brought my grade down. So I
Okay.
just, yeah, but that's really fascinating. That's really cool that they did that in university for you.
Yeah, I would never have known sort of otherwise. So I totally kind of relate to how you kind of just, I also enjoyed writing, but you just kind of got on with it. And even though you were kind of struggling and.
Yeah, that was just kind of a thing. I mean, that's also like that's also pretty much what happened, or what I think happened with being diagnosed autistic, because
Mhm.
I in retrospective, like after I got my diagnosis, it was so obvious. Like it was just so
Yeah.
obvious. But it was never like, oh, I was just quiet or quirky, or I had like, I don't know, I didn't like loud music or parties or something like that, right? Like
Mhm.
it was just a thing. It was just part of my character, and everyone was like, oh yeah, I guess she's a bit weird.
Yeah, I get that. Like, you just kind of are associated as that person that doesn't really enjoy parties or going out much, but your friends are your friends. They still love you for kind of who you are, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So what made you go forward for your kind of diagnosis and assessment in the first place? Was it kind of you were struggling at work, sort of thing?
Yeah, so I was struggling at work without being aware of it.
Mhm.
I've always been like a bit of an overachiever, so I started. I don't know. I think I had my first internship with like 16, and I always like worked really hard and tried my absolute best at everything. And I had a very demanding job, but I
Mhm.
enjoyed that a lot, and I thought that that was just, I don't know, what people did and what I liked. So I never associated like the stress that I was under with um like with my work, basically.
Okay.
And kind of how it started, or how we found out, is that I was having these quote unquote tantrums,
Mhm.
which now, of course, I know those were meltdowns, but
Right.
back then it wasn't clear to me. And it could be anything from me just getting so fucking angry, and just being, I don't know, like a real bitch. And like Thomas would, like my boyfriend Thomas would call it spiraling, where I would just, yeah, get really angry, and it would start with, oh, we bought the wrong potato, and it ended with like me on the floor just screaming about how the world is terrible and why
Okay.
are we even here.
Yeah.
So so it was just, yeah, these thought of tantrums. And at some point, yeah, my boyfriend was just like, hey, why don't you try seeing a therapist? Because he had been seeing someone for completely different like issues.
Mhm.
And I went there and just told them like, hey, I am tired and anxious all the time, and I don't know what's going on. um and they also didn't know what's going on.
Okay.
But I did a lot of research after that myself, and kind of talked to them about my findings, and we sort of together reached a conclusion that it might be autism related.
Mhm.
And I got referred to a psychiatric hospital to see a specialist, and then that took another like 6 months and was a whole deal.
Okay.
And yeah,
Right.
sorry, I got way off tangent here,
No, 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 not at all.
but yes, basically, the reason why
Okay.
I was seeking a diagnosis in the first place was just um, having these meltdowns that I didn't know, or like I had no clue where that was coming from. Like it didn't have any
Mm.
trigger, and it didn't have any. Yeah, I
Okay.
really couldn't tell why.
Mhm. That must have been scary in a way because, like you said, you weren't entirely sure why it was happening. And like you said, you were always kind of, a hard worker and you just kind of, did your best at work. And that's kind of all anyone expects. And just to kind of, you know, be told by, your boyfriend, maybe there is something more to this, must have been quite a kind of not a scary conversation, but something that must have been kind of hard to think through. Like, did you find that your doctor was kind of understanding of the fact that you felt you might be on the spectrum?
Yeah, so it's. I mean, first of all, it was less scary in the beginning than frustrating.
Hmm.
So I had these, like, me just having these tantrums, or getting like really angry, or having these outbursts. That wasn't a new thing. I had that before. Like I had that through childhood. I had that through like university and so on. Like
Okay.
I on one memorable occasion, I had one of these tantrums in or meltdowns. We can call it what it is now, I
Yeah.
suppose. But I had a meltdown like on the streets of Tokyo, and it was a whole thing. Like there are these instances were not new.
Okay.
What was new and what was really scary is that like right before I was seeking professional help, it was the first time that they became self-destructive.
Right. Okay.
So I'm okay with talking about it, but I'm not quite sure if that's something that's okay to talk openly
You
about.
can, yeah. You're if you want to talk about it, that's totally fine. I can we can say now there's a potential trigger warning if you do want to talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's good to have. It's nothing severe, but what was new to me. So I had one meltdown before I knew what was going on, where we were trying to do my taxes, and
Okay.
and they basically the form said, oh, if you don't know what to do, look up I don't know, 0.65 in the manual, but
Mhm.
that point was non-existent in the manual, and
Oh my
somehow
god.
that stressed me out so fucking much, because
Mm.
it was already such a hard form, and I just started crying and screaming and just pulling at my hair and hitting myself, and that was the first time that that had happened, and
Okay.
that was incredibly scary because it was something I couldn't control,
Mhm.
and that was the first time where it was like, oh, what the fuck's going on? Because
Mhm.
previously to that, like when I got angry or when I would, I don't know, scream about the world being unfair, that that just seemed like something like, oh, I'm just hot-headed, or oh, I'm just
Yeah.
like, I don't know, being neurotic or a bitch or something like that. Like I've been called that to my face multiple times growing up, so that wasn't new. But
Okay.
me just not being able to control what was going on with my
Mhm.
body, or like not controlling myself, like that was scary. um I was very, very lucky with the assessment and with the diagnosis, because when I so in the Netherlands, the way that it works is that for everything you might need, you see your GP first. So
Mhm.
you go to your general practitioner and you tell them, like in my case, I was like, hey, I'm having these anxiety and panic attacks. I don't know what it is. Can I see someone?
Okay.
And he referred me to see a therapist. And then in the first session, basically, I just talked with them about like anything that it could be. Maybe like we were
Yeah.
basically trying to search for triggers. And when we couldn't find any, I went and did a lot of my own research. And like we talked before with dyslexia, like that's where I started. I was like, okay, I know I'm dyslexic.
Mhm.
I know that that's neurological. Like maybe it's something attached to that. And
Okay.
I went into like a YouTube rabbit hole and ended up on a lecture by, I think his name is Tony Edward. And he was just talking about Asperger's in girls and how that manifests during childhood. And basically everything he said in the lecture was just 100% describing what had happened in my childhood.
Okay.
And so I just did a lot more research on that topic and then brought it to my therapist. And I was so scared. I mean, maybe you can emphasize with that, or like maybe you
Yeah.
know what that feels like. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of other autistics, like diagnosed or self-diagnosed, know what that feels like. But just this feeling like you kind of know that that's what it is. Like you just kind of know, but
Yeah.
also you're not a medical professional, and it's so fucking scary because it seems to me it felt like I found this like weird alternate dimension. Like, oh, like there is this whole world that was
Mhm.
inaccessible to me before, and I just didn't fucking know. And it was, yeah, it was really scary to bring this up to my therapist. And I had researched it super well. Like I looked up the document today because I was curious, and it's just like this really precise list of all the stuff
Okay.
that like it might be, and basically like research data and everything. And so
Mhm.
yeah, I told my therapist all about it, and then in the end, when I was done, I was just holding my breath, basically, like what are they gonna say next? And the first thing that came out of my therapist's mouth was like, "Oh, so last time we talked about your father." And I was just sitting there going like, "Oh shit, she's just gonna like go back to like, oh well, you had like some childhood trauma or something, like some typical
Okay.
like, don't you think the relationship with your parents, like that's what I thought it was gonna be."
Yeah.
But the next thing she said was, "Don't you think he might be autistic as well?"
Oh, okay.
And I was just sitting there like mind blown because I had a difficult relationship with my father, but seeing
Mhm.
like that little quip through like, oh, maybe he was autistic as well, just
Mm.
put that whole relationship in another like, I don't know, like
Okay.
perspective and everything. And I was so relieved because like, yeah, they just were
Okay.
like, yeah, no, this actually makes a lot of sense with everything you told me and about your family and about you and so on. And let's
Mhm.
just refer you to a specialist. And that
Okay.
really was that. So I was so lucky. I still had to wait like 6 months until I got an actual intake with the specialist.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay. That's really interesting that they kind like you could see that from a new perspective almost, that kind of your relationship with your dad, and that actually, what if he was on the spectrum? Like
yeah.
that's such a completely new way of thinking. That must have been a bit of a kind of like, oh, like realization to come to, but also like you did so much detective work, like trying to kind of like to go from kind of dyslexia, and then yeah, oh, might be a neurological thing, and then to kind of you really proper like researched and like did your homework almost on like trying to figure out yourself, which that's a really big thing to try and work out for yourself. Or what do I struggle with? Because just coming to that realization can be quite difficult as well, but you did really well to kind of narrow it down so well and actually say to your therapist rather than your therapist say to you. That's
Yeah, I
really
mean,
impressive.
I kept making the joke to different specialists because I saw quite a couple of different ones because when I started like the whole diagnosis with the psychiatric hospital, they had a lot of young doctors, so they were in rotation. So I wasn't diagnosed by one person; I was diagnosed by like three. Um,
Okay.
and and so I kept making the joke of like, oh yeah, I'm kind of like the bane of their existence because I came with like my own research papers. Like I just like plopped
Okay.
everything down in front of them and was like, hey, I know
This is what
you're
I
the
think.
professional, but
I
so
always
yeah,
think that that shows a bit of, determination as well.
I
You think,
suppose so.
yeah, just to say, I have been thinking about it. I have been kind of mulling over everything, and this is what I found. And just seeing yourself in like, when some like watching a video on kind of autism in girls and stuff, and just you know hearing stuff and being like, yep, that's me. Is always kind of like it's quite kind of nice, isn't it, to hear sometimes. You're like, oh, there are other people who struggle with these little things like me. So I get what you mean.
Yeah. It wasn't even just like the thinking like, oh, there are other people out there. It was initially for me, it was a lot of just realizing that what I was feeling was valid because
Mm,
I mean, I heard that from other autistics as well, but I've been told like a lot of my life like, oh, you can't be in pain right now, or you can't be overwhelmed right now, or you can't be
mm,
sad or angry or tired, or like that's just not, you're not supposed to be that right now. And just realizing that, oh, I've just been viewing the world from a completely different lens than everyone
mhm,
else around me and the people that raised me and my friends. Like that was really like the main realization for me in the beginning. Just like, oh, okay, so no wonder that I felt so like alien growing up because
yeah.
I was just constantly being told that what I was seeing and what I was experiencing wasn't real. So like that's just, yeah, that's really the thing that hit me first, I think.
Mhm. It's difficult as well. Like I don't know, to grow up and not know. Like, it would have been so, I always think it would have been so useful for me if, like, my autism had been picked up just like a little bit earlier in life, because then you just would have, I don't know, felt like, oh, that's why this, I have meltdowns, I have these little quirks, I'm, my parents and my friends, I'm a little bit quirky and special. And just having, I know, like, it's not, people don't like to have labels, but actually having this autism label is so helpful now because it just sums up everything in one, like, word. You're like, oh, I'm autistic. And people are like, oh, yeah, rather than, oh, I'm sensory, or, oh, I struggle with, daily life and the stresses, I don't know if you found that kind of having that label has been quite helpful.
I think it's been really helpful for me personally. So
Mm-hmm.
less for the people around me. That's still a bit of a struggle sometimes.
Mm.
But for me personally, just to give myself some more leeway, like what
Yeah.
you said, like, oh, I wish I would have known a little bit earlier. Like I can't help but think the same. Like just wondering,
Mm.
like, what it would have been like if I had known as a child, because I think I would have been so much easier on myself. Like a lot
Yeah.
of the time growing up, I was just trying so hard. There's this term, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's called twice exceptional. Um,
Okay.
so it's used basically for children with learning disabilities or general disabilities,
Mhm.
where you basically have to be twice as exceptional as your peers.
Okay.
Like I was doing relatively well in school. Like I was always in like the top of my class, and I was like liked by teachers, and I was yeah, I don't know, I just was able to keep up. Like I never repeated a grade. I always handed everything in on time and so on.
Mhm.
Um and basically uh what that kind of means in the context of being twice exceptional is that I not only had to be exceptional in my normal like coursework at school or yeah, in
Mhm.
university and so on, but I also had to like bridge that gap that like my learning disability had left or opened up. So you
Mhm.
basically have to be, yeah, twice as exceptional as your peers. um and I think if I had known that I was autistic, or even had understood my dyslexia better and not just seen it
Yeah.
as just like, oh, that's just a thing that's there, whatever.
Mhm.
And maybe I could have been accommodated for that better, and maybe I could have been like just kinder to myself and feeling
Yeah.
less like I was falling behind, or like I wasn't doing well enough, or like I was just too dumb for some things, or not trying hard enough. Like I think that really took a toll on me growing up, or on the way I saw the world, basically.
Mhm. I think also, like you're saying, you were having to work twice as hard as everyone
Mhm.
else just to, like, fit in or seem like, I'm gonna say normal, but I know that no one's normal, but,
Yeah.
like, just to try and fit in and seem,
Mm.
the same as your peers. So I get that, you know, and I feel I did the same. I was working, twice as hard. Okay, I was quiet and I was, you know, doing all my classwork on time and handing it in on
Mm.
time, like you said. And neither of us sound like we were any, like, trouble at school. And I think sometimes that's half the reason it doesn't get picked up, like in
Yeah.
girls, because we're quiet, we're hardworking, we just get on
Mm.
with it. And actually, we're hiding our struggles, or we're, like,
Yeah.
masking our struggles. And I think that's kind of a lot of the reason why autism isn't always picked up in girls that early on, because you just kind of get on with it. And we kind of need to cut ourselves some slack, I think.
Yeah, I was just also hiding so much, really. Like, of course,
Mm.
like, not severe things. Like, there wasn't anything I was hiding that, I don't know, like, I didn't have bodies buried in the back of my yard or anything. But I was just hiding a lot from myself. Like, I just figured out relatively early, okay, this persona is what will get me the best grades, or like the least attention
Yeah.
of teachers and so on. So I I jokingly, like, I talked about this with friends relatively openly. We just all didn't know what that was. Like, I had this joke about, like, okay, for the first 2 weeks of a new semester in school, I would pay really, really close attention to every teacher and the way that they taught and their, like, I don't know, the coursework that they gave us and so on. And so I would figure out a pattern every time and be sure that with every, like, yeah, with every teacher, with every class, I had this persona in place that fit that exactly.
Hmm.
And so I kind of hacked my school classes in a weird way. Like, I just figured
Okay.
out, okay, with this teacher, I have to raise my hand like 3 times per class. Okay, with this teacher, I have to, like, do a presentation. With this teacher, I have to. So yeah, I just, I was never fully just being myself.
Hmm. I
So
get you.
yeah, I
You're
think um there's just a lot of stuff that, if you're undiagnosed, or that's what I found, you just do, and
Hmm.
you don't even know why. Like, it's just a thing that you
Yeah.
do to fit in, I guess.
Hmm.
And it's only now, like, when we're thinking about diagnosis and what comes after, like, I'm still in the process, and maybe you have a similar experience. Like, I'm still in the process of just going through that, like, going through my memories and experiences, and just trying to, like, figure out, like, okay, what part, I don't know, did it, like, was related to me being autistic, what part
Hmm.
was just school experience or life, like, what part was me. Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I've been like that after my assessment. Like, me and my mum have been like, "Oh, so that's probably why you were doing that, or that's probably why you found this difficult." And I'll be like, "Oh my god, like it's all coming back." Like, you don't realize how much, like, stuff you were kind of, well, like me just like bottling up my emotions until I came home from school and getting upset at home, and it's just all these like little things that add up, and you think, "Oh, actually, I was, I always have been autistic. I always have been struggling, but I was just kind of getting on with life because there
Mm.
was no other option."
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
weird, isn't it?
yeah, but that's such a good way to put it, right? Like, oh, I was just getting on with life.
Mm,
Because, like, I didn't know.
exactly.
Like, and no one really knew. So I was just like, well, I don't know, I guess this is my life. And so I
Yeah.
just did stuff the way, I don't know, I did them. And I can't even say, like, I think I had quite, like, I had a weird childhood at times, but, like, I had a good childhood. Like, I was fine. Like, I am super, super fucking lucky that I have, like, an incredible support system. Like, I have a really big family. They're all very close.
Mhm,
I was so lucky with, like, friends growing up, because I always had this, like, one friend, like, from elementary school to, like, from kindergarten to elementary school to high school, and then university. I always had this, like, one friend who was kind of like, okay, you're a bit weird, but you're fun, and I'm just kind of, like, adopting you now, and we're going to do this together. Like, I had this, like, my best friend in high school. He just, like, adopting sounds so weird, but he was just like, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna take you with me everywhere now. And I was like, okay. So I just became friends with all of his friends, and I just went to all of their, like, parties, and I went to the cinema with them and stuff. And then, by
mhm.
proxy, they also just became my friends. And so that's, like, yeah, I've been very lucky with a lot of coincidences. Like, there was always one teacher who would look out for me. There was always one friend who would be there for me. There was always one person in my family who, yeah, who'd kind of get it. And so I wouldn't even say my childhood was, I don't know, that bad. Just,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think mine was, like, that bad. It was just all you need is, like, one person in your, like, in, your class or your friendship group, or just someone to just be like, "Oh, I'll take you for who you are," kind of
Yeah.
thing. And that, just having that one person to not follow round, but kind of, but
Yeah, I
just
mean,
be like,
I'm
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, I did definitely follow.
Yeah.
with all of the people around, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So
Yeah,
I just,
exactly. We don't know what we're doing.
it's much more relaxing. Like, it's kind of, for me, it was often just a break from masking as well, because I would just do whatever they were doing, and it was like, I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't have to think about this right now. I don't want to. Um, but yeah, it's. I know we went a little bit away from the whole diagnosis story
That's
now, but
fine.
it's, for me, that really is. I'm curious how you experienced that, because so when I was first diagnosed, or when I first figured out, oh, like, it's most likely autism, I was like, oh, nice, I'm done now. Like, I know exactly what it is. Like, I can just get on with my life.
Mhm.
And then I kind of realized, oh, I don't know shit. And I fell into this, like, weird hole of, I like, I know what's going on now, but also at the same time I have no idea what's going on now.
Mm.
And I had to learn all of these things. Like, I had to learn about stimming and self-regulating myself, and about meltdowns and tantrums, and like, all of these things, like everything that I, like, had not known about for 27 years, and everything that I had
Yeah.
suppressed for 27 years was just all come, like, rushing in at the same time. And I was
Mhm.
so overwhelmed, because I had no fucking clue what was going on in reality. Like, just having that label, like, didn't mean anything in the end, because it's
Mm.
so individual, and every one of us is on a different part of the spectrum. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm very curious how you felt after you got your diagnosis.
I think I kind of relate to how you feel because, like, after the, like, assessment, I walked out and I was like, "Oh, wow, I'm autistic." And you're like, expect the world to change because you
Yeah,
know
right.
something more about yourself. And then you just, like, get in the car and go home and you're like, "Oh, actually, everything's still the same."
Yeah, it's like,
And you're
"Oh, this
like,
car is still really fucking loud. What the heck?"
"Yeah, yeah." Like, nothing, like, it tells you so much, but also it doesn't it doesn't change anything.
Yeah,
And that
exactly.
was weird and hard because you're like, "Oh, but I now know everything." And, stuff starts coming to you and you think, "Oh, that's why I struggled," and stuff. But yeah, like you say, you've still got to work out how to, like, self-regulate. And, like, they don't give you, like, this whole, like, booklet of, like, how to live your life now that you
Oh
know you're
god,
autistic.
imagine
That
if
would
they
have been
gave you
handy.
any information. They were like, "You're autistic. Good luck." And it was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Okay. And I was like, I know that I'm one of the lucky ones, because the hospital I went to, they basically have, like, they're the specialists of the Netherlands, like, when it comes to autism, and they have this, like,
Mhm.
program, and they have these groups and so on, and they were so accommodating, because I couldn't do the group therapy because I don't speak Dutch. So
Okay.
they, like, did, like, their own individual therapy for me and so on. But even that was so little information, and it was so generalized, and it was also so ableist. Jesus, it was bad. It was not good. I'm Yes, I talked to them about it multiple times. I did not like it. But it
That's
was
enough to put you off.
it was still it,
Yeah.
it was still helpful to some degree, right? Like, they didn't just, like, I don't know, shoo me out of the door and be like, okay, you do you now. But they
Mm.
they actually they actually try to help. And I know that's not the case with a lot of, like, did you get any sort of, like, help or therapy after you were diagnosed?
So I was offered, like, a follow-up session with the same person who
Mm.
diagnosed me as autistic if I had any questions, but I didn't feel like I needed a kind of follow-up. But I was offered, like,
Wait, did you
the
come to
same.
regret that? Like, did you come to regret not taking the follow up?
To be honest, because I'd had the whole, like, report back by then,
Mm.
I could kind of see it all, and there was nothing I disagreed with or anything I wanted changed. I think if I disagreed with anything in the report or anything she'd
Mm.
said, then yeah. But it was literally just to talk over the report, the follow up. It wouldn't be like any kind of support
Okay.
groups or anything like that. But at the end of my autism, like, report thing, there were, like, kind of suggestions, and a lot of them I was obviously already doing, like using, like, fidgets and stim toys and, like, different, like Instagram and, like, stuff to follow and stuff. And I was like, I'm kind of already doing that.
Oh, that's
But
really nice, though.
it was kind of more modern in terms of,
Yeah.
like, these are good people to follow, or, like, you know. different like occupational therapists rather than just like kind of talking therapy and stuff like that I could go to. But I was also offered like is it a 4-week like autism like kind of course, like a post-diagnostic course that I went on, which was a couple of hours every Tuesday evening for like 4 weeks. But again, I found it wasn't. There were kind of 4 of us adults who went. We'd all like recently been diagnosed, but we were all like totally different. Like obviously, different points on the spectrum or whatever you want to call it. And it was such a general like PowerPoint presentation on like, now you know you're autistic and stuff like that. And it wasn't anything like, it wasn't very understanding, if that makes sense, because there were people sat next to me who were like 40, 50 years old, and I was just like, wow, you've only just found out. And like this PowerPoint was so like general, like these are the things you struggle with, and we're all sat there like, we know. So I'm glad I went on it. But I think like me and my mum, because I took my mum with me, we like every time we went out, like after a session, we'd be like, we could have run that better ourselves. So I'm glad I went, but I get what you mean about like kind of, therapy and like support groups and stuff like that. You've already lived as an autistic person, even though you've just found out, and you know what your struggles are, you know what you're struggling with, and you don't need someone else to tell you that again, sort of thing. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, no, I think actually we must have been in some sort of like the same therapy or structure. Like that's kind of what they did for me as well, just not in a group, but individual. And I also found that to be like frustrating at points, because I was like, okay, thank you for telling me like this generalized thing, but can you help me with this specific problem? And then they
Yes.
just were like, oh, that's not what we do here. And it was like,
No.
but I'm the only one here. so like that's where my frustration came from. What was really helpful for me, and I'm curious if that was the same with you and your mom. So I took my boyfriend, and it was extremely helpful for the two of us. It was nearly like we joked that it's basically couples therapy. Because while I had lived as an autistic person all my life, obviously he had no fucking clue, of course, because like he's neurotypical. So for him, that was so helpful, and for both of us to learn how to communicate with each other and to learn like what basically was going on and how we could handle ourselves going forward. Because for me, what happened basically when I started to do my own research and when I went through that process of diagnosis, I did what I always did. I kept it all to myself. So I was just like I knew all the things, but my boyfriend had no fucking clue what was going on. So he was still seeing me like struggle and be anxious, and just like I experimented with like stimming and fidgeting, and he didn't really know. Like I had never told him why I was doing that. So he was just sitting there like, what's going on? Like, I love you very much, but I'm so confused right now. So yeah, for us, that process, I think, even though it didn't really help me much in my own development, it helped the two of us to just learn how to talk about stuff and learn how to just be able to openly communicate about everything that's going on, and fill each other in on what we are feeling and expecting and where we are right now.
And that sounds like really amazing. Thomas sounds really supportive, and
yeah,
the fact that
I'm very glad about that.
Yeah, just the fact that you're so open and honest with each other, and that he's kind of been with you on this journey, if you want to call it a journey. But just to have someone with you through all that is like me having my mum. Like it's so helpful to be able to just kind of lean on someone when you're like, oh, I don't know how I'm feeling about all this, and I don't know, just having someone, just anyone, is always I don't know, a good support, I think.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you on that. Like, I don't think I could have done that on my own, because I would have just been so fucking frustrated. Because there are a lot of things, even in diagnostic process, like I'm not sure if we had the same tests, if they're standardized, because I don't think they are from what I've heard from other people.
Yeah.
But like just like the assessment questionnaires that I had, like if he
Oh my
wasn't
god, yeah.
sitting, oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
good. Like, no, if he wasn't sitting beside me and be like, okay, take a deep breath. I know this is frustrating, but the way that they mean it is like a bit
Yes.
different. And like the questions that they asked were just, I often joke that like the best way to tell if you're autistic or not is like your level of annoyance and stress when you fill out the questionnaire, because the stuff that they ask is like everything is has no fucking context. And
No.
I was just sitting there, it's like, do you often feel restless? And it was like, in what context? Like, do you,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, do you like talking to people? And it was like, in what context? Like, I'm
Mm.
having a lot of fun right now talking to you. Do I enjoy like being in some weird ass business meeting? No, I don't.
No.
Like, so it's, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Different environments, different, like, answers, isn't it?
But yeah, having
Yeah.
a person with you through diagnosis that's incredibly helpful.
Mm. I had the same thing with my mum. Like, we'd sit down in the evenings, be like, we've got to fill out these like diagnostic forms, and I'd be like, I need you to sit with me because I cannot process these questions.
Mhm.
Like, some of them are so long-winded, and they have like a couple of questions within a sentence, and then I'm like, just I'm lost. So I get what you mean about just they're so frustrating. And I found a lot of like the questions on my forms were kind of directed at children as
Oh
well.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
do you have
and I'm like,
do you have any special
what?
like any intense interests like trains? And it was like, fuck off.
Like,
Like just really.
I'm not like, 5 years old. Like, yeah, I have special interests, but don't suggest them. Like, that makes it sound so childish. No, I get you.
Yeah, no. It was a whole trip. My questionnaires were also in Dutch, which made
Oh my god.
everything so much more like intense and silly, because we like Thomas was doing his best to translate them, but that's
Mm.
like a psychologist designed them. So he was
Yes.
just sitting there like, I'm an English major. I don't know. I don't know.
You're hoping you're just answering them the
Yeah.
right way. Oh, that's funny. So when did you actually move to the Netherlands? Just now that we're talking about.
I moved like 3.5 years ago. So
Okay.
in February 2017
Okay.
ish. Yeah,
Mhm.
February 2017, I think. I am not great with dates. Um,
Me neither.
even when you think about stereotype that we should be amazing with dates and math.
Yeah. What's
Um,
that about?
I'm
No.
not. I don't fucking know. I don't know. I feel like someone saw like one stereotype on TV once, and now everyone who
Mm.
writes an autistic character is like, oh my god,
Yeah.
they're really good at math and
Yeah.
they like
Like
trains.
yeah. I'm
Like
like
not,
I'm
I'm
not.
sorry, like no offense to any other autistic who is really into
No.
trains,
No.
because I get it, they're fucking fascinating and I love
Mm.
being on a train, but also just that stereotype is like, it just grates on my nerves, because I think it's
Mm.
one of those things that really makes people slip through the diagnostic criteria.
Yeah.
Um and that's just really frustrating.
Mhm. I
But
agree.
yeah. No, so I moved 3.5 years ago. I moved for a job. So I got an internship here, and was like, okay, I'll just I'll just give it a go.
Mhm.
And yeah, that internship turned into a full-time position. And that's the like I had that job until I went into burnout, basically.
Okay.
And I just kind of stuck here. It's a really fucking nice country. I did not imagine that I would end up in the Netherlands.
Okay.
Um, that was not like, I always thought I would go to England or to the US or something. I wanted to move abroad since I understood the concept of moving abroad, I think. So since I was
Mhm.
quite little. And I've been trying throughout like high school and university. Like I wanted to do an exchange year during high school, and I wanted to study abroad, and I wanted to like do all of these things, but there was always something that just didn't work out, mostly money,
Okay.
because it's expensive.
Yeah.
And then I got one chance to go abroad after university. I went to Munich for 7 months. to intern at Walt Disney,
Oh wow.
and then I came back to Austria
Hmm.
and did not have a job, or couldn't get a job for some reason, which was very frustrating. And that was
Okay.
kind of the time where I met Thomas, and I had two offers fall through. I had an offer to go to film school in London, and then that fell through because Brexit. And then I had an offer to go to New
Oh,
York for an internship, and that fell through because of a visa. And
right.
I was just standing there, like, we weren't even dating yet, my boyfriend and I just texted him and was like, "Hey, I just need to go away. Can I sleep on your couch?" And that's kind of how I discovered the Netherlands. Like, I just took a plane
Oh
and
wow.
slept on his couch for a week, and that's kind
Okay.
of like I came back, and I had a boyfriend in a country I wanted to move to, so that's
Well,
kind
that's
of
amazing.
that's kind of how that went. And like, I
Mhm.
think 3-4 months later, I moved to the Netherlands. So yeah,
Okay.
here I am.
And you like it there? It's somewhere that you enjoy living.
Very, very much. I
That's good.
like, yeah, I really did not personally expect to like it that much. Like, no offense to the Dutch or this beautiful country. But yeah, it just wasn't on my radar. Like, I wasn't aware that that was a thing, even though, funnily enough, I have been surrounded by Dutch people growing up. Like, our neighbors were Dutch. And I
Oh,
just,
okay.
like, I knew about the country, but I just didn't really, I don't know, it just didn't really pop up in my mind. But yeah,
Okay.
I've been loving it here.
Oh, great. That's really good. And I've seen your Instagram with like the amazing views from your balcony, so I'm like,
Oh yeah,
I
we are
really want to.
so lucky here. Yeah.
It looks so good. It's so pretty. So what else did I have? I had like a little podcast outline that I sent you. I was
Yeah.
going to ask you special interests, seeing as we kind of touched on the
Yeah.
whole kind of subject. Do you have any special interests or hobbies that you kind of go to?
Yeah, I feel like that's a bit of a given, considering it's like a diagnostic criteria.
Yeah.
But yeah, so currently, I think my main special interest is video games, probably.
Mhm.
Like, it's always been like quite a strong interest of mine, but this is the first time that I have like a console available to me, or like e- every console. Like, we have all of the console at home because Thomas is also really
Excellent.
into video games. So I started to, since I moved here, and now so when I moved to the Netherlands, I was living in Amsterdam,
Mhm.
because that's where I worked, and Thomas was living in a different city, like 1.5 hours away. And only for the last like 8-9 months since I've been in burnout, we lived together, because I was like, it. Why the fuck would I stay in Amsterdam on my own without a job?
Yeah.
It is very expensive there. It's not fun. I paid a
Okay.
lot for living. But yeah, since I've been here, I picked up more and more and more video games, and even got a like my own Nintendo Switch during Christmas, and I've been very, very strongly into Animal Crossing. It has
Yeah.
consumed a lot of my waking hours.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I play a lot of different games. It's kind of my meditation, basically. Like,
Mm.
especially after the diagnosis, I figured out that uh, depending on what game it is, of course, but it's really helpful for me to reset my brain.
Yeah.
I have this point, like, I think you probably have your own way of describing it, but the way that I describe it usually is that my brain is kind of like a hard drive.
Mm.
Like, when I'm awake and when I'm doing things, it just fills up with information, and it fills up and fills up and it fills up. And then there's this point where it's just full, and I can still do things. But the
Mhm.
chance that I'll have a meltdown or a shutdown or something like that is just so high, because yeah,
Yeah.
my like words, my hard drive is full at that point, so I can't really process anything anymore. And
Mhm.
at least for me, I don't really process things while I'm doing them. So
Yeah.
I just take so much time afterwards to really go through like things that happened, and to just like categorize them and process them, and form my opinions and thoughts about them. And I have an issue with that if I'm just doing that quietly on my own. like if I replay a conversation or something in my head on my own, my brain is just gonna go like, why the fuck did you say that? Or just like obsess over like little details. And
Yeah.
it's not just conversations, it's like really anything else. Like it's like, why did you stand in this corner at this event or something, right? So if I play video games, I can do that processing without having to actually think about it, because it engages some part of my brain that like would usually do that worrying part, and it just like shuts it up because it has to focus on the game. And then there is like another part of my brain that is just free now to process stuff and just like file it into its like correct cabinets and stuff.
Okay.
And that's been really helpful, and I also just like them.
That's a really good way of like kind of using your downtime and kind of, you know, using gaming as well, just to, you know, so you're not just sat there overthinking things and just kind of going all kind of focusing in on just the little things you said and why you said them, just being able to kind of do that in the background whilst you're kind of gaming, or, you know, just playing on your Switch or something like that. That's a really good way of kind of doing it without focusing on it massively.
Yeah,
That makes
basically.
sense.
Yeah, it's just I tried like I've been we're reaching that point where like words and I can do you have that? Like I hear the
Yes.
words in my brain, like I know exactly what I want to say, and then my mouth is like, words? What? Where
Does
did
not
it come
compute.
from? I don't know. But yeah, what I basically wanted to say that meditation has been suggested to me like over and over by like multiple different people. But I tried it and it just does not work for me, because my
It's
brain
hard.
just like I'm also sure that I probably need more time or more dedication to do it, and if it works for other autistics, like that's great, and like I'm super happy for them. But for me, like I went through these guided exercises, and it's always something like focus on every part of your body. You can feel your toes and stuff. And I was like, I don't fucking want to feel my toes. I can feel everything all the time. Like,
Already,
please
yeah.
don't make me focus on my body. Like, it's just bad. I don't like it. And then it's stuff like, let your mind wander. And I was like, the apocalypse. And it's just like, you know, like I just cannot do that. Like, that's what I'm actively trying not to do every day, because that's what my brain, like my body and my brain wants to do anyways. So if I play a video game, like if I have, I don't know, if I have some video game character jumping over lava or something, like I can focus on that, and it's not taking up all my brain space. So there's still like place for my brain to just relax and take a breath, but it's engaging it in a way that just lets it breathe, and just lets it be like, okay, I don't have to worry about anything else.
Exactly. Especially with a game like Animal Crossing, it's just it's just kind of relaxing anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be way more relaxing than me trying to like sit and try and meditate and not my thoughts not wander to like a worst case scenario like you just said. So I can totally get that. So I was gonna mention about your Instagram, and so how do you say your handle?
Oh gosh, I never thought about that. Should I have thought about that?
No. Is it at Curio Sophie or Curious Sophie?
Yeah, I would have just said Curiosophy, like just like in one go like just
that sounded good.
one go through. When I made that handle, I thought it was being very clever. I have since been told that some people like did not get it, but it's basically
like
just like Curious Sophie, because like I've been very curious all my life. It's I don't know, one of my traits, I guess. But yeah, that's Curiosophy is fine, or also like any other way people might want to say it.
And when did you start it up? How long have you been doing it for ish?
Like 2.5 months ish, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's only been that long. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow. Because you almost have like 500 followers.
I think so. tried very consciously, like, not to look at it too much because I think
Yeah.
it would freak me out, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, when I started it, I was like, "I will not care about how much followers I have because, like, that's not good
Mhm.
for my brain," and I still
Same.
kind of think that, but I had this, like, goal somewhere in the back of my head. I was like, "By the end of the year, it would be really nice if I had, like, reached 500 people."
Mhm.
Um, and now I'm, like, at, like, 420 or something,
Mhm.
um, and I'm like, "Oh, that went faster than I thought." Haha, hello. Um, it's a bit
Hello, people.
yeah, it's a bit I mean, you must know that feeling so much more, like, maybe you don't have that feeling, and I envy you for that, but at this I want to share
Mhm.
myself and my journey and what's going on with the world, but
Yeah.
also please don't look at me.
Yes. Yeah,
You know?
exactly. That's why no one knows what I look like,
It's like
because 'cause I'm like, "Nope." So I envy you in that respect, because like, you have people know what you look like, and I'm like, "That's really cool, and I wanna do that one day, but not yet."
yeah, no, I understand that so well, though. I think for me, in the end, it came down kind of to why I started that channel in the first place,
Mhm.
because I am so incredibly grateful for channels like yours or someone like The
Oh,
Autistic Life or Autistic Barbie and
yes.
so on. Like go look all of them up on Instagram. They're amazing.
Mhm.
And I could mention so many more. But there are so many incredible accounts that advocate and that educate and that just really stand up for what's right and our rights and just try to be like that bridge between what sometimes feels like two worlds. And I
Mm.
honestly, like, I don't know where I would be without these accounts and these people. And like I've learned so much from them and felt so safe and welcome.
Mhm.
But at the same time, one of the things that I was craving right after I got my diagnosis was just like a very mundane account, like just
Yeah.
someone who shares like their life, like, "Hey, this is how I dealt with this specific thing in this situation," or like, "Hey, I ate, I don't know, cake," or "I went there." I like just really like boring, mundane things, like just and it doesn't necessarily have to be like happy and good vibes and like stuff
Yeah.
like that all the time. Like I'm trying very hard to also share stuff that doesn't work out or and
Mm.
sometimes if I solved it, how I solved it. But I
Yeah.
just was craving to just see an autistic person exist. If that makes
Yes.
sense, like just some yeah, just as much as I think it's so important to like fight that fight and really like educate and go out there and stand up for our rights. I also just yeah, I just wanted to know that I can be okay, that I can
Mhm.
just exist and be
Yeah.
myself, and that that's still an option, that I can
Mhm.
have a relationship and a job and just like yeah, live a good and happy and sometimes difficult life. Like that's really what I was missing and what I'm still often missing. Like we don't see that in the media. Like there's
No.
no apart from the fact that there isn't even really like there aren't even really any autistic female characters on TV or in like
No.
now slowly we're getting them in books sometimes and stuff, but
Mm.
like there isn't even any representation to begin with, let alone like happy representation. Like when I'm just thinking about the issue that you have in the like LGBTQ plus community about representation in media and how that's
Mhm.
only slowly starting up and how there are still so many like queer stories that end in tragedy on TV, and that's just like we're not even anywhere close to that yet
No.
with autism. So really like I'm aware that I'm just one person and I'm aware that I don't think I'm making a massive difference and that's also not really what I'm trying to do. I just really wanted to have a platform where I could just connect with other autistics first and foremost, and then I have
Mhm.
that hope at the back of my mind that maybe someone who is recently diagnosed like me will see this account and be like, oh yeah, like life as it knows isn't over. Like I can still do all the things I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I feel like the exact same way. Like I didn't set out to make a difference. Like if one person could relate to the fact that,
Mhm.
oh, I struggled today because of this, like that would be huge to me, because that's all I want, was to find and still is all I want, is to just find other people out there that are like me and that get it and that just relate to just daily struggles. And that's what I love seeing on Instagram, is and your account, you're really good at being like really open and honest and being like, today I struggle with this and this is how I got through it. And just like seeing other people's coping mechanisms
Mm.
is like great, because then you're like, oh, actually, maybe next time I'm feeling a meltdown coming on, I can try something that, Sophie tried or someone else tried on Instagram. It's just having like a little autistic community
Yeah.
online and just sharing those little like bits and pieces. Like we're just kind of hoping that, it might help someone else somewhere
Mm.
along the line. And I think that's what we're kind of both trying to do in our accounts is, if it helps someone, that would be great.
Yeah.
But if not, I'm on this platform just being me. And I think that's quite important.
I mean, your account, at least for me, has been so incredibly helpful. Like you were one of the first accounts that I followed when I
Oh.
was even considering it. Like I wasn't even on a wait list yet, I think, for getting a formal diagnosis, but I had found your
Mhm.
account and I found it just so helpful because it's like honestly, it's so fucking accessible. Like there's something about art or the way especially you depict like sensory issues or like any topic really that made it so much more like understandable for me. Like it's much easier to grasp. And one of the things that I just love so much is that you combine both artwork and then also like informative posts about anything that you're going through right now. Like I
Mhm.
remember seeing the post about your diagnosis and that you got the official letter. And I remember just feeling like so excited and happy for you. Even though like at that point I didn't have my account yet. I didn't know you. But I was just so excited because it was just like you were one of the first people that I could follow with their journey.
Mm.
And yeah, I made me feel a lot less alone.
See, that's lovely to hear. Because, you don't always connect with people who are looking at your Instagram and stuff like that. And just to be able to hear that, one person, following along my little journey, it might have just, helped just a little bit is lovely to hear. So thank you.
I mean, I can make it a little bit more sappy if I tell you that you are also like one of the main reasons why my account still exists.
Oh.
I when I started the first week, like I had this idea at the back of my mind, and then I started, and of course there was like a lot of self doubt and like also a lot of worry, like oh I'm showing a lot of myself, and is that like
Hmm.
dangerous to some degree or something like that. And I just like after a week of having the account, I was like, oh this is like I'm not doing good and my posts are like bad and they don't matter and I don't like it and like this is just not for me and blah blah. And you
Hmm.
were, I think, the second person ever that sent me like a message, like a direct message. And
Oh,
it
okay.
was just something like, oh, like I just saw your account and it's great that you're doing that. And that really that made such an impact for me because
Oh.
I've like I had been following your account for quite a while and I was so like in awe of the stuff that you post and that you put out there. And it was like, okay, if Emily thinks this is like worthwhile, then maybe I can try again. And I did. And I'm
Oh.
so glad that I did because I think my favorite part about this is just the people that I've got to talk to. Like
Hmm.
I got to talk to so many different people and to some I talk like nearly daily at this point. And even though I've never really met any of them face to face,
Yeah.
I have this like very intense connection with a lot of them just because we share this experience. It's like this
Yeah.
own like it's like my own secret club basically. And it's really nice. And I'm really really glad. Like I have learned so much in those like 2.5 months that I started the account, just from talking to
Mhm.
people and just following other people's journeys. And it's just been really, really lovely.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that, and it means a lot that you kept it up just because I gave you like a little like message. But like likewise here, like if someone messages me like, oh, I really related to this part of your drawing, I'm like, oh great, like someone gets it kind of thing. And it's, I don't know, it's weird because like you say on Instagram, like you talk to a lot of people and you have like a lot of connections and stuff, but like you don't always know what they look like or sound like or anything like that. But like I had someone who messaged me the other day being like, oh, I saw on one of your videos that you answer direct messages, so this is a test to see if you do. And I was like, oh. So I messaged back, I was like, hi, yeah, I replied to everyone. And they were like, oh my God. And I was like, I'm just a normal person. Like I'm always going to say hi to people. Like they thought like I was some sort of like influencer or something. I was like, no, I'm just Emily. I was always going to reply, but it was so cute. It was like, this is a little test for you. It was so funny.
Oh,
But they
that's
were
really
so
sweet.
happy. Yeah, I was like, it's okay. You can message me. I'm not like, I'm not above anyone, just because I think people think like the more followers you have, the more, I don't know, like say you have in the world, but I don't think that's true.
No, I don't think that's true either. I mean, the only
No.
thing is like that I imagine that the more followers you have, the more like messages you get and so on. And at the end of the day, we're still autistic, so
Yes.
like communication can be hard, and there are just days where I
Mm.
don't have any spoons. And I like, even with people that I talk to a lot, like sometimes messages lie around for like a couple of days because I just don't have the energy to answer. So
Mhm.
I mean, I have that in general. Like on very rare occasions, I message like accounts with a lot of followers because I don't even know what it was about, but yeah. And I never expect anyone to message back, really, because it's
Mhm.
their time, and at their own discretion, basically. Like they need to decide for themselves, like, do they have the energy to message someone today, or do they even want to
Yeah.
just keep private? And that's a completely legitimate thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would understand how someone might be like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Maybe.
But that's kind of like what I like about messaging you, is that like you get it, and like I don't expect a quick response from you. You don't expect a quick response from me. Hopefully, like whenever you reply is great. Like I'm not expecting you, like if you've read a message from me or I've seen that you've read it, I'm not like, why isn't she replying? I'm like, it's fine, she'll reply whenever.
I mean,
Whereas I think a lot of people in the world are like, oh,
yeah.
they've read my message, oh my God. Where I'm like, I don't care. They'll reply when they're ready.
But I mean, that's such a neurotypical concept anyway, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like
it
I've
really
I've
is.
got so much flack for that. And I'm very conscious about, like, in WhatsApp, like, not opening messages. If I like, I'll
Mm.
just, when the notification pops in, I pull it down and I see if it's really urgent, like if I have to reply right now,
Yeah.
or if I can
Yeah.
leave it for a second, because I just, yeah, it's there. I mean, that's not the only thing, obviously. Like there's so many things ingrained in me from like growing up that I'm still
Mhm.
working through, where I'm like, oh wait, is this something that I'm doing because I don't know, like I want to do that, or is this something that I've just learned while I was growing up that I'm not like allowed to do or not supposed to do,
Yeah.
or something like that. So, but yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing about talking to other autistics, because like you kind of just have that understanding that they get it.
Yeah,
Like,
it's great. There's just no pressure, and I love that.
yeah.
So what else was I gonna ask you? So if I was gonna ask you briefly, so how
Mm.
were you kind of, we've talked about kind of diagnoses in the past and stuff. How are you kind of coping daily life at the moment? Like what kind of challenges are you facing, and like kind of burnout and stuff like that? Do you feel you're coping a little bit better nowadays?
I would definitely say I'm coping better. I mean, there is like, I would say it's a multi-stage process. So one of the things that's been a
Mm.
bit difficult is the fact that um, I've been officially diagnosed with autism, but I haven't been officially diagnosed with burnout, because basically what they told me during my diagnosis was like, well, you're autistic, so you can't be in burnout. They
Right.
have not explained to me why.
Okay.
But apparently this is a thing. I don't know. And I think it has to do with the fact that so burnout is recognized mostly for being like you can burn out in your job. Like you can burn out from working, but
Yeah.
it's not recognized that you can burn out from other things as well. Like that's not just an issue with like autistics, but that's also an issue with, for example, caregivers. Like if you have
Yeah.
a sick family member at home, you can burn out from taking care of them, for example,
Mhm.
or from like really any other reason. Like from school, you can be burned out from school.
Yeah.
And for me, when we talked about like my experience at work and so on, I enjoyed my job. Like I really liked what I was doing, and I was good at it. Like my performance wasn't lacking even on days where I was like, well, I don't have any spoons to eat today.
Yeah.
So like the work for me, the work itself wasn't the issue. It was everything around it. It was like having to go to work on a tube. It was having to like interact with people at work, or the neon lights, or like all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, they didn't officially diagnose me with burnout, and that has been an issue with getting help. Um,
Mhm.
so everything I know, or like, but when I talk about where I'm at now, or if I'm doing better, like that's all kind of stuff I figured out myself. So I have no idea where I'm at on like the burnout timeline.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm doing a lot better. When I Because that might be interesting for people to know.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that what I was experiencing was a form of burnout. Um, so I had, even a year before I got my diagnosis, I had gradually stopped doing certain things. It
Okay.
started with things like going out, like going to the cinema, or going to, I don't know, have dinner with people and so on, because I just didn't have the energy for that. And then
Mhm.
it went to stuff like not being able to watch my favorite shows because they were too intense and I just couldn't process them. So for example, I will only watch reruns of cartoons, or something like that, for a while,
Mhm.
because I just couldn't process that. And it went into, like, right in the last phase, it went into things like not being able to sleep, or not being able to shower or eat. So anything,
Yeah.
like, I would come home, I would perform well at work, and then I would come home and be like, well, I don't have energy to cook. Let's go to bed.
Yeah.
Um, so, so it was just this, like slowly, step by step, I just lost control of being able to manage my life.
Mhm.
And like the end phase basically was just like having a meltdown every day. And kind of like what happened now in the past 9 months is that I just slowly regained all of these things.
Okay.
So for me, it was a lot about, or is a lot about, daily now, learning how to do things in sequence again. In the
Mhm.
first, like, I think 3 to 4 months, I just had to really relearn how to just exist. Um,
Yeah.
so I had to learn how to get out of bed, how to shower, how to like feed myself, and it was just like, yeah, that just took a lot of effort. Like I had someone ask me once, like, "Well, you've been at home for 9 months. Like, what do you do all day?" And it was like, I don't know, just existing, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Just trying to
so
cope.
yeah, so that was really, and there was a lot of like stuff, autism related, basically, that I had to work through and go through, and like just find the right coping mechanisms for myself.
Mhm.
And now I think, yeah, I think in the past like 3 months, so really when I started the channel, that's the first time now where I started to have projects again. So the
Okay.
Instagram channel is like the first kind of project that I did outside of just existing, basically. So the
Mhm.
first thing where I have somewhat of like a goal or a schedule, I would say. Um,
Mhm. And that's a big thing.
yeah, oh yeah, that's a big thing. That is, I'm very, I mean, I still have an issue to say something like I'm proud of myself or to boast myself, because
Mhm.
that's not how I don't know, how I raised myself, I guess.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I'm honestly kind of proud of what I accomplished, and what I've, like, what I managed to do in the past couple of months, because I'm at a point now again where I can do things in sequence. Like
Mhm.
I can get out of bed, I can shower, make my own breakfast, and I can do like some small admin tasks, and then I can work on the channel, or I even started up writing again for the first time in like 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I'm at a point now where I can do things in sequence as long
Mhm.
as I'm careful with them. So
Yeah.
I have a tendency to overdo it, and like overdo the things that I do, because
Mhm.
partially that's how I like learned to do things,
Yeah.
and partially I just am worried that I'll regress again, or that I'll just burn out again right away when I start doing
Yeah.
things. So I'm trying to like get everything in really quick, which obviously isn't healthy. This is how I ended up in burnout to begin with.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
no.
it's good that you've like taken the time and, like you say, just getting back into doing things in sequence. Like that's a really big thing. And I think some people don't understand that just, getting up and like self hygiene and, eating and getting dressed and stuff like that, like they can be really big things to kind of, you know, do every day. And
Yeah.
just existing is hard, especially if you're autistic. Like I'm sure it is if you're neurotypical, but we have a lot more to deal with, I feel. um, yeah, so I think it's really good that you're kind of sharing that online as well, and that you've got like this little side project on the go as well, like you say, like having a goal and stuff.
Mm.
And I'm very much the same. Like I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I don't like being like, oh, I'm really proud of myself for that, or like blowing my own trumpet or anything like that. But I think you should definitely be proud, and I should probably be proud of myself, because we're both doing, we're both got little side hustles on the go, and we're trying to raise awareness at least. So I think that's a good thing.
I mean, you also have an actual job. Like that always blows my
Well,
mind, that you like can work and also put stuff out. And I'm just always hugely impressed by that, and keep hoping that you also take it easy on yourself sometime.
yeah, I try. Yeah, I do have to like kind of keep a work-life balance in some
Mm.
respects, and like it's the like messaging back people, I think that's kind of gets on top of me a bit, and I think, oh, I can't do it, and then I just kind of go off and have a bath and like have an evening to myself and think, oh, I can do it. I just gotta, like you say, like not overload myself so quick, because then I will burn out. Like you've just got to stop.
But that's really a thing that I've realized to learn. Like I wasn't aware of that, but
Mm,
this point where you say, okay, I just gotta shut off and have a bath. That
yeah.
point is so hard for me, and I'm still learning that. Like that, it's so hard for me to tell when that is.
Hmm.
Like I used to, and I think that's also what brought on a lot of the meltdowns. Like there's this point where I'm just overloaded and I'm done, like hard drive full, and I cannot process anything anymore. And
Yeah.
to have that awareness, and then also the strength to say, okay, enough, stop. I will just sit down now, and like block everything out and have a bath or play video games or just like do something for myself. Like
Hmm.
that's such an important thing to learn how to, just learn how to recognize, and also let yourself have
Mm.
like quiet then.
Yeah. I'm jealous of the people who can just do that
Oh yeah.
automatically or
Oh
naturally. I'm
yeah.
like, how do you know when I can't work out my own feelings? Like, how
Yeah.
do you know when you're
Oh
getting
Jesus.
to that point?
Am I hungry or am I angry? We will never
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um,
I might be both. Who
yeah.
knows?
No, but I think that's like at least. So I'm very lucky that as shitty as the current situation is with the
Mm.
coronavirus and everything, it also means that my therapist has more time now, so I get to
Great.
see her once a week, and
Oh, that's really good.
it's a relief. And so one of the things we're working right now is just for me to learn how to switch in and out of tasks.
Mhm.
So instead of just like trying to finish one thing once I started it, to just learn how to put it down and to step away and just be like, okay, enough for today. Because
Mhm.
that's something I don't do. One of the things that you need to learn when you are in burnout is you need to learn to set boundaries, and
Yeah.
usually that means setting boundaries like for other people, like for your supervisor or your colleagues or at work or something like that.
Mm.
But especially in my case, it means setting boundaries against myself, because I'm the one who puts really the biggest expectations on myself, because that's how I
Yeah.
learned, like, this is how I made it through like high school and university and stuff. Like
Hmm.
what we talked about before, twice exceptional, right? Like I
Hmm.
have much higher standards on myself than the people around me, really. So I have to
Yeah.
learn how to set this boundary against myself and be like, hey, Sophie, chill the fuck out. It is okay if it's not perfect, or if you like finish it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's my biggest process at the moment, just like letting myself stop and
Hmm.
rest.
And it's so ingrained in you though, isn't it? Because
Mm-hmm.
if that's all you've ever known is to just, keep at it and keep going and,
Yeah.
push yourself. And it's actually just the pressure you're putting on yourself. And I
Yeah.
find the same thing. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? It's me
But it's
putting pressure
still
on me.
like, it's one of the things that I have learned is also to be a little bit lenient with myself with that, because
Hmm.
I get so fucking frustrated if someone tells me like, oh, just let it go, because I'm like,
Yeah.
this is not how this works. Like
No.
this is not how I'm wired. Like I cannot just leave things like they are in my head. Like it's a physical sensation. There are
Hmm.
some things that are just having to switch a task, having to leave things unfinished. That's a physical sensation. Like I can
It's painful,
feel
isn't it?
it's painful. I can feel
Yeah.
it, right? So that is, it's not as easy as just like letting it go, or just like living in the moment or something like that. Like
Hmm.
that just doesn't work. So it's really important, I think, for me and for really anyone else, to figure out how, like, what works for themselves.
Yeah.
Like for me, the scheduling seems to work relatively well, as long as I don't tie it to a time, because I cannot
Yeah.
tell time. Time and I don't like. I just 10 minutes feels like 1 minute. There's no time is a concept and a construct, and I
Yeah.
don't understand it.
I agree.
But yeah, so it's just important that you figure it out for yourself, basically. Like no one
Hmm.
else really, especially when you're on the spectrum. Like that's one of the things. Like we're all so different. um
Yeah.
like really no one can tell you or know what you need.
Hmm. It's having to learn that again as well.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, it's great that you found a therapist and that you're like working through things and that she's more free now. That's great. Um, and I'm hoping maybe one day I'll maybe find another therapist. Because the one that I went to last said that she couldn't take me any further because of my
Mm-hmm.
autistic traits. I was like, great.
Oh
Thank
yeah,
you for
that's
that.
exactly what happened to me. Because I so the hospital that I was diagnosed at, they were basically like, well, you're not suicidal, so we cannot admit you, so we're done with you here.
Mhm.
And then they luckily referred me to someone. Like they were like, okay, we found this one singular person in your area that might be able to help you.
Okay.
And like I like my therapist a lot. Like they're great. But at the same time, they're not specialized on burnout, for example.
Yeah.
And so I went back to my GP, my general practitioner, and it was like, hey, so I'm at a phase now where I can deal relatively well with the autism part. But the burnout part is just overwhelming to me, and I feel like I'm not making progress. And my GP just had to tell me, like, yeah, I wish I could help you. I really wish. Like, I have like 3 more patients with the same issue, but
Okay.
the psychologists won't take you in because you're autistic. And I was like, great, great.
That's not my fault.
That's, first of all, that's not my
It's
fault.
who I am.
Second of all, how the fuck is the solution to we don't know how to deal with it? Like to just
Yeah.
not admit people instead of learning about what the fuck's going on. Like
Yeah.
that's one of the things where I'm like I'm not walking into this like I know that this is difficult. I know that this is a new
Mm.
topic. I know that there is not that
Yeah.
much research on it. And I'm not walking into this therapy session going like I'm expecting you to know everything there is about
Yeah.
like autism. Like I am willing to work with you. I'm willing to help educate you. Like I'm willing to
Mhm.
like to tell you about my experiences and like just be open-minded. And I really just here for burnout. Like, even if you have no clue about autism, like, just tell me what you know about burnout and we'll
Yeah.
figure it out, right? But being outright
Yeah.
told, oh, we cannot treat you for this, like, for this condition that, like, is impacting your life, like in my case, burnout, just because you're autistic. That's so fucking frustrating because, like,
Yeah.
what, like, I'm still a person.
Yeah, you have every right to
Like,
have the same. Yeah. Like you say, we're not expecting the world when we go to
no,
therapists. Like, we know they're only specialists in certain areas, and we get that. And like you say, we can educate them. We're happy to do that, but
yeah.
you still want to be seen.
We're also not aliens. Like, we don't speak a
Yeah,
different language. Like, you can
yeah,
talk to us. That is a
exactly.
possibility.
What are they? Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
I
So now,
Yeah, sorry.
what were you gonna
No,
say?
no,
No, no.
no. I just wanted
What were you
to.
gonna say?
I just wanted to say, like, I do hope that you'll find someone that works out for you, and that there's
Thanks.
gonna be help
I'm
available.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure there will be. It's just, you've been through it, finding and trusting the right person,
Oh
and
yeah,
then being able to like spill your heart out to them is difficult.
yeah. No, I mean, I think that's also so frustrating because, like, I'm so lucky now that I found one person, right? But it's still
Mhm.
just one person. Like, therapy is such a personal and vulnerable thing, and
Yeah.
I kind of want to be able to choose, because you get
Mm.
into this weird relationship with your therapist because I need my therapist. Like, I really need them, right? And
Mhm.
so it's this weird, I don't know, it's this weird dependency. So
Yeah.
uh, again, like, I'm super lucky with mine, but if there was something that I didn't like or that I had issues with, it would still be the only option that I had. So like, it's so much harder to say something or to leave, and that's just, yeah,
Mhm.
that's just an issue. So
No, I get what you mean. It's a lot, isn't
yeah,
it? You put a lot of like faith in someone, and you rely on them a lot, no matter what you're sort of going through. And I know what you mean. It is a weird relationship. It's like, you know so much about me. Oh. I feel like we've been talking for an hour and a half almost. I've
oh
just looked.
geez, yeah.
I know, it's gone so quick. Thank you for giving up some of your afternoon to chat to me.
Oh no, I had
Um,
a lot of fun with this. Yeah,
oh,
it's a lovely
yay!
talk.
I'm glad. I was gonna ask you if you wanted to mention like your Instagram and your Twitter and any other links. I'll put them in the show notes below the podcast as well. But just like a little self promo, if you want to say where people can find you online.
Oh bother. Yeah. So my Instagram handle is curiosophy. Um, we have now realized that we don't really know how to actually pronounce that, but it's basically just curious and then Sophie. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's where you can find me on Instagram. That's where you can also find me on Twitter. I am very rarely on Twitter, and if I am, I only talk about Animal Crossing. But yeah,
Some people will love that.
yeah, I suppose. But yeah, you can always find me on Instagram. I try to post daily-ish stories and a couple of times a week on my feed.
Mhm.
And it's really just, yeah, like you heard before, a combination of of what's going on in my life right now, and
Mhm.
any video game that I'm at the moment. Yeah, I'd
Sounds
love
good.
to have you there. I'd love to chat as well if you have any questions about any of the stuff I just babbled on about.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really
Amazing.
it.
Okie dokie. Well, I just want to say thank you very much again for coming on. You are my second ever guest, so
Yeah, I feel so
exciting.
honored. I really, like, I was very excited when you reached out because it's like, what, me?
Oh,
I am just
well, I'm glad you said
Sylvian.
yes.
Um, but yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
No worries. Okay. So hopefully see everyone next time. So, yeah. Bye everyone.
Bye.